Hello and welcome to the Try Talking Sport podcast, hosted by me, Joanne Murphy. Whether you are an athlete, adventurer, endurance enthusiast, or simply have an interest in sport, you have come to the right place for inspiration, encouragement, motivation, and as always, and especially in this episode, plenty of entertainment. I'm not sure how it happened, but I missed an episode of the podcast in February. January seemed to drag on for weeks, and then February was gone in a flash. Whoops! Apologies to all of you who were looking for the February edition, but here we are now into the first week of March. It's Women in Sport Week in Ireland and it's International Women's Day, all rolled into one, and this episode is definitely one that was worth waiting for, with 3 total legends joining me on the podcast. I'm actually surprised I managed to get the episode reduced to just over an hour, as there was so much laughing going on in it. I hope you have been doing well and are gearing up for the season ahead, whatever your choice of activity. I'm now into scarily single digits on the weekly countdown to Ironman 70.3 Mallorca in May. Eek! I had a little bit of a panic a couple of weeks ago, thinking I wasn't doing enough training, but I just stuck with the process, and last week it finally felt like it was all beginning to come together, thankfully. Now I'm off to Lanzarote next week to embrace the wind and hills on Oliver Harkin and Paddy McLaughlin's training camp. That's sure to put manners on me for a few days, and I can't wait for some sunshine and spending time outside on the bike. My announcing schedule is also taking shape for the year ahead, with some new exciting events on the horizon. It looks like it's going to be an action-packed year ahead, and I am so grateful and very excited to get moving again. The Operation Transformation 5K last month in the Phoenix Park was just a brilliant day out. This week I'm in the National Indoor Arena with Gymnastics Ireland, and then next month the announcing adventures really take off. Pardon the pun, but it will be my first international event of the year at the Four Islands MTB race in Croatia, part of the Epic series. Ironman 70.3 Mallorca won't be long coming around after my island hopping in Croatia, and Freddie, my road bike, is all booked for his adventures to Alcudia with Team Truck, taking the hassle out of transporting him to the race venue. If you have yet to sort your bike transport for your international race this year, be sure to check them out, and if you use the code TTS35 when booking online, you will get a €35 discount until the end of May. Check them out on www.teamtruck.eu. Closer to home, there are lots of races now listed on the Try Talking Sport website, so if you are looking for an event in Ireland or in the UK, be sure to take a look, and if you are the organiser of an event or a race, please do get in touch to get your event listed on the site. As always, a big shout out to our great friends at Nuasan. I am going through their new bath salts and my favourite Nuasan product, the CBD Muscle Gel, like it is going out of fashion. If you haven't tried them out yet, be sure to look them up on www.nuasan.com and use the code TTS15 to get a 15% discount online. So now to this episode with Lucy, Nikki and Bex, who share wonderful insight into Lucy's remarkable Montane spine race achievements. Lucy took part in the epic race in January of this year during one of the worst periods of weather the UK got this winter. Professional triathlete Nikki Bartlett and her partner Bex Milnes supported Lucy's endeavours, with Bex capturing images and updates of Lucy on the Pennine Way. Meanwhile, Nikki turned the images and information received into an exciting social storybook of tales from inside the race, capturing the imagination and hearts of everyone eager to follow Lucy's progress as she embarked and conquered in one of the toughest foot races in the world. Stretching 268 miles or 431 kilometres from Edale in Derbyshire in England to the village of Kirkyatham on the Scottish border on the Pennine Way. If you don't know where that is, then get out your map and check it out. It is an epic route. Lucy gives us a glimpse of just what her preparation for an endeavour of this nature entailed, as well as great insight into how her race unfolded. Although we gloss over some of the intricate and technical aspects of the race, we still get to understand the remarkable journey undertaken by the 14-time Ironman champion as she ventures beyond her comfort zone into uncharted mental and physical territory, pushing her limits to the brink to discover her true capabilities. In this episode, Bex and Nikki shared their own version of Lucy's journey, with some snippets of what it was like for them to follow the race as they closely and cautiously tracked Lucy's progress to the finish line. As the race proceeded on the Pennine Way for Lucy, another story was unfolding behind the scenes which, when unravelled, would have heartbreaking consequences for Lucy. Resilient and robust as she is, she faced the situation head on and began picking up the broken pieces one bit at a time as she concurrently recovered from what she had just put her body and mind through to reach the finish line of the spine race. As you can expect, bringing the four of us together for a chat resulted in lots of high energy, fun and laughter. The power of sport and friendship between these three incredible women as they share their personal stories of this epic adventure will certainly put a smile on your face, and I have no doubt inspire you to step well outside your own comfort zone. If you enjoy this show and want to find out more insight from Lucy about her spine race, be sure to pop on over to her own website, www.lucygossage.com, and you can also tune into the Inside Try show, where Lucy chats with Helen Murray literally days post-race. If you wish to support Move Against Cancer, you can click on the Just Giving link on Lucy's website, and while you're here, why not check out the chats I had with Lucy in 2020, it's episode 26, and with Nikki back in 2019 on episode number 8. For now, though, go grab a cuppa and enjoy this epic episode of the podcast. Lucy Gossage, Nikki Bartlett and Bex Milnes all in the one room on Zoom for this very special episode of the Try Talking Sport podcast. Oh my word, I'm so excited. Lucy, it's been so long since we've actually seen each other and spoken, but you have been on such an adventure, which we will get to in a few minutes. And Nikki Bartlett and Bex, I saw you in Lanzarote a few weeks ago. You are now in Spain. So we're going to get all the gossip from the Goss and her two amazing friends who supported her through the spine race. Lucy, welcome back to the Try Talking Sport podcast.
Oh, it's so nice to see you, Jo. It's been far too long. And Nikki and Bex, nice to see you as well.
So Lucy, where are you? It's a Sunday evening. We're recording the podcast. It's a beautiful sunny afternoon in Galway. Where are you at the moment?
I'm in not so sunny Nottingham, but I did a nice long run in the mud, a bit of mud skating this morning. And yeah, I'm just at home, kind of getting ready for work next week.
So when you say a nice long run in the mud, it wasn't another 268 miles, was it?
No, it was about 10% of it.
So you did a marathon today?
Yeah, very, very slowly. It was literally like mud skating.
Just casually throwing it out there. We just ran a marathon today. Is that what happens when you do the spine race, that you can just throw marathons into your legs and off you go of a Sunday morning?
I think you go I'm so slow compared to how I used to be, but I do seem to be able to just kind of rack up the miles, and that's so yeah. I don't know. It's different. It's just completely different. I'm so slow, but I think I'm stronger, or touch wood, a bit more robust, maybe.
Definitely resilient, that's for sure, which we will get to talk about in a few minutes. Nikki and Bex, the last time I saw you was the end of January. You were sunning yourselves in Lanzarote, tearing up the tarmac, all up through Tabiesco and doing serious amounts of lengths in the pool in Farriones. You're currently sitting outdoors in a cafe in Spain. You look cold.
It is about 8 p.m. our time. Yeah, we're doing our best to avoid the UK winter, as you can tell. So, yeah, Jo, you joined us for some swims.
I wouldn't say I joined you now, Nikki Bartlett.
Yeah,
I cheered you onto the sideline.
No, you were there.
The bit that's being hidden is that Bex Milnes is now a swimmer in this.
The occasional swim. Occasionally.
I didn't see much swimming from Bex now in Lanzarote, but she did have the stopwatch. But she did do a half marathon last week. So,
Yeah.
last week, yeah. So you guys are in Torrevieja, is that correct?
Yeah, we're just south of
Torrevieja.
Alicante in Torrevieja. And yeah, there's a half marathon on last week, so we thought it'd be rude not to just jump in on a local half. And yeah, it's good fun.
Another one that just decides to do a half marathon on a whim.
Well, then
Bex is a half marathon every day.
yeah, 2 days later, she went and did a 30k in the hills. Yeah.
And what about poor Titch? I saw Titch was on a bike ride as well.
Titch is loving life. She's got a new lease of life. Yeah, she's living her best life and loving all the attention, because we're in a house there's 8 of us in the house, and she just basically goes from one lap to the next.
So the reason we brought you together for this podcast is because Lucy completed the spine race in January. She was front and centre doing all the hard work as the athlete. But Bex and Nikki, you helped to create a huge storyline for Lucy in terms of her performance. How did this all kind of come together to start with, that Lucy, you would bring Bex and Nikki on the journey with you so they could share your story whilst you were running, racing, sleepwalking, falling about the place, going off track, going on track, and doing the spine race?
So I like, everyone knows Move Against Cancer charity is a cause really close to my heart, and I've invested so much time and effort into it. I just believe so much in it. And I've never actually, although I've helped kind of grow the charity over the last 6 years, I've never really done a fundraiser. So I knew it had to be something epic. And I didn't decide to do the spine because of Move Against Cancer. But when I decided to do the spine, I thought, you know what, I think this is epic enough that people will sponsor me. And so I just thought, well, who could kind of perhaps tell the story quite well? I was like, Nikki Bartlett. So I can't remember whether we were having dinner or something, but I think I said to Nikki, do you mind doing my social media? And I'll send you some videos and pictures and you could just post them. And then I don't know how Bex ended up kind of popping up and down the course. And I think her dad bought it. Well, you can tell, but dad bought a van and that kind of.
I was just like, the concept of the challenge was just so crazy to me that I was like, I have to like witness this in some way. I can't just follow on a tracker and just, imagine what's happening. So coincidence would have it that my dad was having a bit of a midlife crisis and bought a camper van about 6 months previous. So initially I was like, oh, can I borrow your van to go and watch the spine race? And then he was like, I want in on that. I'll come track it. And so, we decided to take to the roads and kind of just make our way up the Pennine Way as Goss was racing, and help to collect some content that I then passed on to Nikki to help tell the story. So, it worked quite well.
Rewinding a little bit, we've seen Goss go from absolute chopper in the trails, because in COVID times, there was like a group of us when we could go out running and stuff together, 6 or whatever. We went out to the peaks all the time. So Goss started around about then, wouldn't you, Goss, that you got your complete love for the trails. And we saw you go from like some 2-hour runs to descending right at the back to getting your poles and marching up on.
People don't like. I genuinely, I was so bad. I still am really bad at technical stuff. Like, so bad. I've got ankles like Bambi, and I was like miles behind. Even Nikki's pretty bad, but I was still way behind Nikki. And I think you come from running and like running quite well. And a 2-hour run's a long run. Like, I'd finish 2-hour runs and I'd be dead. But so the hardest transition, I think, is slowing down enough that you can keep going. And I guess getting stronger. But people don't believe. I think people think, oh, well, Lucy Gossage is a pro triathlete. She was a good runner. She'll be great. But honestly, I was so bad. Like, I still am really bad at technical stuff, but I was unbelievably bad at going down hills.
Now, before we talk about going down hills and the spine race itself, Nikki, you have mentioned the word choppers twice in the last 10 minutes. So for the people who are on the podcast who don't know what a chopper is, will you please explain it to us?
I don't know, just a bit of a... God, how would you define it? Bex, you're good at defining things.
I don't know, like an imperfect... I don't know.
Like your way through.
Your way through, by hook, by crook. Just a little bit abstract in the way maybe things are approached.
But it's a term of endearment and a kind of a piss take in the same sentence.
Yeah, they love it. They wear it like a badge of honour. It's
okay. Me too. It just happens. I sometimes think, God, I look pro today, and then I'm like, I look and I've got, I don't know, one sock longer than the other or something.
Your helmet on backwards.
Yeah, or something like that.
Okay, so we got to get serious now for a few minutes, because Lucy, as you know, we have listeners from all over the world, and while most of us will know what the spine race is, will you talk us through what it actually is and what the race entailed?
It's utterly bonkers. That's what I thought when I heard about it. That's still what I think, having done it. So it's 268 miles, give or take a few, the whole length of the Pennine Way. So it goes from Edale in the Peak District up to Kirkgetham in Scotland. You have a week to do it, but the clock doesn't stop when you sleep. So it's effectively a non-stop race other than when you choose to sleep. There are 5 checkpoints, so they're about 40, 50 miles apart. You can sleep in the checkpoints, but you also have to carry everything you need to sleep on the trail. So you have, I think my pack was about 8 kilos when it was full. So you have a sleeping bag, a bivy bag, a mat, a stove. These are all mandatory. You have to have all of that stuff. So yeah, I think if you plan, even, I think you're allowed 8 hours in each checkpoint. So you could do it and have 6 hours sleep at each time. You'd be quite hard pushed to kind of finish it. But a lot of people, I mean, the winner, I think, just didn't sleep at all. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't sleep, which was ultimately my downfall. But yeah, it is utterly bonkers. So it's in January. So you've got about 8 hours of daylight. So 2/3 of the race is in the middle of the night or in the dark. And yeah, it's utterly crazy, but also utterly amazing.
And how did you decide to pick the spine race of all the foot races and the wild, crazy, bonkers races that you could do in the world? Why the spine race?
I first heard about the spine actually when I was on Women's Hour, and they'd asked me on to talk about whether it should be Iron Woman instead of Iron Man. And that was just after Jasmine Paris had won the whole race. So she'd beaten all the men outright. So it must have been, I don't know, 2018, 2019, whatever it was. So that was when I first heard about it. I didn't really know what it was, but I was like, that is, that's just crazy. Who would do something that you can't sleep? And then Andrew, who's well, we'll talk about him, but he was my partner. I think 2021, we couldn't get, it was in COVID time, so we couldn't get Airbnbs and things. So we ended up doing this kind of impromptu walk across Wales, just because that was the holiday that we could kind of do. And that was kind of where the idea became a little bit more than something crazy to like, oh, this is quite interesting. I'm quite enjoying this walk. I was like, how hard to walk across Wales? But it's bloody hard walking when you're a runner. And I think the more I knew it, the more I learned about it, the more the podcasts, so it's very similar to Ironman, actually. It transitioned from being something that seemed utterly crazy to something that still seemed utterly crazy, but was sucking me in. And almost the more I knew about it and the more I found out about it and the more horror stories I heard about it, the more I got sucked into thinking I really want to do it. So yeah, it was I think it was about 2.5 years kind of in the evolution from first kind of thinking, oh, could I, to actually making that start line.
And how do you even go about preparing to take on the distance? But actually, I'm not even thinking about the distance. I'm thinking about the elements, like the snow, the wind, the ice, the coldness, the frozen food, the frozen garments, everything. Like, how do you even start to prepare for an epic adventure like this?
That's the bit I really loved, because for me, it was never a race. It was I wanted to push myself, but it was never, I wasn't racing anyone else. It was this challenge, and I would say it was from that week in Wales, those 2.5 years kind of evolving from, where we walked maybe 26 to 30 miles a day to, I went through every injury in the book just because I wasn't strong enough, because I didn't know how to look after myself, like how you look after your feet, kind of each kind of trip that we did, we got kind of more, what's the word, but a bit more proficient at it. And I had in my head, like the last year running into it, ever since I signed up, I had this jigsaw in my head of all the pieces that I needed to collect. And I loved going around collecting these metaphorical jigsaw pieces. So we gradually build up the runs. We did loads of point to points. So it got to the stage that 40 miles was, I can knock out 40 miles in a day easy. And it's really slow, but it was like no drama, 40 miles, bish bash bong, could do another one the next day. But it's all the kit, it's how you look after your feet, it's how you don't get injured, it's the gym work. Then, I don't know, things like how do you deal with the ice? And the only piece that I couldn't get until the race was a sleep piece. And I knew that was a missing piece, but I had done things like night shifts with all the doctor's strikes. I was like, yeah, I'll do them, I'll experiment. But it was just such a great adventure. Like I loved every single bit of getting to that start line. And yeah, I loved that I was turning from this completely utter chopper to kind of, I didn't realize that actually we'd got quite good, but I just felt confident that I was learning something every single trip. And I just loved that experience of doing something so different again. It was such a cool journey to the start line. And I honestly, I said before I think when I signed up, I was like, the journey, I hope the journey kind of, or before I started, like the journey was life-changing. And I got to that start line and felt like the race is it literally is just the kind of the experiment at the end. It's been such an amazing journey to get there. It was brilliant.
And think back to standing on the start line. Out of 10, how nervous were you about
So nervous. And Beck's got a video. Beck's got a video, and like she said, what are you nervous about? And all the things I was nervous about came through. So number one, the hole that I could dig, because I knew I could dig deep ones. Number two, not being able to sleep, and I couldn't sleep. And number three, making stupid decisions because I couldn't sleep. So they were my three biggest fears, and actually all of them came true. But I was so nervous, but not about, I think it looked on the tracker like I was racing, but it wasn't about that. It was just about doing this. Like, how do you break it down? Like, how do you break down 268 miles? Yeah. So nervous, but good nervous.
And did you expect to do so well?
No, and like it sounds crazy, but a little bit of me wishes I wasn't near the front of the race. I mean, I'm so far behind the lady that won, but yeah, it was never about a race for me. It was about pushing myself and finding my own boundaries. And, now I look back and there, a bit of me thinks, well, had I just slept at that last checkpoint, maybe I'd have had a really good race, because it was going to be a really good race. So then that would have been so dull. And actually, I was doing it to find, Lucy Gossage turns out how smashes the spine race first time. Actually, I did it to like have all those dark experiences that I had and have those tough bits and just about come out the other side. And that was what I loved about it.
Did you cross the finish line in second place, but the official results were third?
Yeah, so Hannah, the girl behind me, had got given a bonus, but I was oblivious to all of this. So, and it really didn't matter. And in fact, I thought that Hannah was miles ahead because when I was asleep or going to sleep in the church, I'd seen a lady, and I was so out of it, but I hadn't realised, of course, there was another race, like there were shorter races going on, and she was miles back at that point. But I was just oblivious. I didn't know any of that, and it just didn't, it wasn't something that was on my radar at all in any sense.
It's mad to think that, like, you're sitting here now, we're a month there or thereabouts post spine race. When you look back on what you achieved, did it meet every expectation in terms of what you did and how you embraced the adventure and embraced the unknown that you faced?
Do you know what? There's a bit of me, I'm almost a bit embarrassed by the amount of attention that I've had because of Nikki and Bex telling this story. Like, I was in Morrison's just now, and someone came up to me who I don't know and said, "Oh, I almost didn't recognise you not on the Pennine Way." The last week in Morrison's, exactly the same thing happened. A checkout, some paediatrician from the hospital I never met was like, "Oh, you did very well in that walk." Like so yeah, I did have a great time, but as in it was a great adventure, but there were so many people that did better. And yeah, a bit of me kind of feels, I don't know. It's crazy that somehow that I captured the imagination of so many people, because it wasn't an amazing performance. It was, it was very solid, but it wasn't. So there's something.
Sorry, you came second.
No, but it was.
You officially crossed the finish line in second place. It was a great performance.
Yeah, but Hannah didn't get all of this. The girl that won it, who was a whole day ahead, she hasn't got all of this, and it's because of Nikki and Bex's storytelling. And I think I was blown away. I got a letter from a patient's dad. We've just discharged the patient. The patient has got learning difficulties, and he wrote to say thank you, and he gave a cheque for £318 for my 106 hours doing. I was like, how did you find out about it? Like, honestly, everyone seemed to know about it. It's crazy.
It's absolutely amazing. But Lucy, I think the key thing here is that you've 14 Ironman wins, right? So if you were to go do an Ironman now, nobody would take any notice of it. That's no disrespect, but we know you've got form. But I think the fact that you went and did something that was so far outside of all of our comfort zone, plus your own comfort zone, and absolutely smashed it. And then you add in the content that Bex got and the stories that Nikki was able to tell. And I'm sure half the stories were probably lies as well, because she probably didn't have a clue what was going on. And here she is, she's laughing now, because I'm going to jump into Bex and Nikki for a few minutes before we talk about some of the highlights of the race for you, Lucy. So you can be thinking about those whilst I jump over to Bex and Nikki. Bex, to see Lucy on the start line and to ask her, is she nervous? And for her answer to be what it was, and for the feat that she had to endure over the next week, well, less than a week, it's actually unfathomable, really, when you're sitting here looking at it now.
It's bonkers, yeah. And I think, like, just bringing back start line memories, I've seen Goss on loads of start lines, and Goss, my memory of Goss on Ironman start lines is she would be the one dancing, singing, encouraging everybody. On this start line, there was a definite kind of more calmness, but also like excitement and buzz. But I think this race is just so different to anything I'd experienced before. Like I've been to hundreds of races. This is like, in terms of what they were taking on, it was the most understated, raw. You turn up to a village hall and the grass pitch next to it, you get started. And these guys are taking on 268 miles at the Pennine Way in the middle of winter, and you're literally just starting them off in a grass field with, a few hundred people. Like, you talk about Jasmine Paris, like, she was there and she was just like, in the crowd, and nobody took any notice of her. If you were at an Ironman race and that was Lucy Charles, there would be media, all the rest of it. So it's just a completely different vibe. But when it comes to the start line, like, as well as the fears that Goss has already disclosed, one of them was about losing equipment, because she is renowned.
You had a bet with Andrew, haven't you?
Yeah, she's renowned for just like, poles flying everywhere. She'll drop hats, gloves, nutrition, the lot, and not realise. And so the joke had been that people that were following her would be picking up a kit along the way. Well, we got to the start line and I was stood there and it's like a couple of minutes to go and there's no Goss. I'm thinking, God, where's she gone? Like, what's going on here? And she comes rushing up and she's like, I lost my gloves. I don't know where my gloves are. So she had to borrow a pair of gloves from a friend who luckily had a good pair of gloves on them. And I was like, oh my God, we've not even started. She's already down.
And how, Nikki, did you start to tell the story of Goss's adventure? You're sitting at home getting the content from Bex. You really don't know what it's like on the start line.
I tried to tell the story like I'm like a listener as well, because basically I literally didn't have a clue what's going on. So like I was like Googling the distances, Googling like where these checkpoints were, and then I'm like, oh no, there's these half checkpoints as well along the way. And then I was like Googling where what they look like, and I was like, oh my God, it's literally a hut. So I was trying to describe it like I was taking on the information at first as well. So it's like, yeah, so basically just because I didn't have a clue either, and I was trying to make sure the audience who was following Goss was understanding exactly what she was doing. Because some people are like, oh, where do they, people literally thought even towards the end that they slept in like beds, like in like a hotel. I'm like, no, this is what it looks like.
There are beds in the YHAs. Yeah, there are beds. Okay. Not in all of them, in some of them, they're beds.
You'll know that for next year, Nikki, when she goes back to claim her title.
Yeah. Yeah. When you go back, Goss, take that bivvy bag that you actually want to take instead.
Don't forget your gloves. But how did you stay on top of it all as well, Nikki? You're obviously training for a big year ahead this year. So trying to spend time on her socials, your socials, do the Googling, make sure that the information that you're putting out there is correct, because God forbid you put out something wrong. People would have gone daft at you that you were putting up the wrong information about Lucy.
Oh, and I probably was putting up the wrong stuff all the time. I remember one point, because when Goss was like literally sleepwalking, me and Bex decided she was off to a stream. she basically, we were following her on the tracker, and it was on the last day, and it was probably a good bit to unpick on the last day, but she'd gone off the tracker, and everybody was messaging Nikki on Instagram going, where's she going? She's off course. Like, what's going on? And Nikki was messaging me going, what's going on? And I'm like, the only logical reason I can think of right now is that she's heading to a stream, because she was literally like, I thought she'd spoken about her bottle's been frozen. Maybe she's not been able to get water. She's going to try and get some water. So then I put that online, and someone literally messaged saying, you are being optimistic if you think. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to hold off. I'm going to be optimistic. And then someone's like, no, seriously, you're being really optimistic, and sent me like a screenshot of where she was. I was like, oh, right, there's no stream though. It was just like mounds of grass everywhere. So then I start voice noting Goss in case she can listen to this voice. I go, Goss, just keep going straight. There's a guy ahead of you. And now understanding the state Goss was in, me voice noting saying, just keep going straight. It's not gonna help anything.
Let's come back to Goss's state, Lucy's state. The last day was probably the hardest day, even though it was the shortest, because you went off course. You had come through a blizzard, which we might get to as well at some point. You were probably the only athlete left on the course and the blizzard came in and everybody else was pulled off, but you kept going. But that last day, talk us through maybe the last section for us, because I think that's the bit that captured the imagination more so than the rest of the race itself. Like the whole thing captured our imagination, but especially that last push to the finish line.
Yeah, so the last leg is 42 miles or something, which, you know, it's a day. I've done so many days like that, so many. And I always thought in my head, if I got that last checkpoint, it would literally just be a celebration kind of, you know, run, walk, whatever you want to call it, to the finish. But it was a combination of factors. So I was really struggling to sleep in checkpoints. Firstly, because they were so noisy and so busy. And secondly, my chest was so bad. I got really bad cold-induced asthma. And I'm not exaggerating, I was like a 60 a day smoker with an audible wheeze. So when I lay flat, that made it even worse. And long story short, I couldn't sleep in the last checkpoint. I tried to. I lay down. There was no beds. It's just this open room on the cold floor. Lay down, was coughing and coughing and coughing and coughing, and had like this full-blown asthma attack. Tried to sleep, but was like, I'm keeping everyone else awake. I'm not sleeping. This is pointless. Got up. The medics gave me an inhaler. And I was like, actually, I feel all right. It's 15, 16 miles to this church. I'll get to the church and I'll sleep there. Because you do feel like you've had food. And I had laid down for like 20 minutes or whatever. So off I trot. And I think by that stage in the race, I'd had less than 2 hours asleep. So probably 2 sleep cycles. And so you're what, 3.5, 4 days in. And I felt okay. And then halfway there was a mountain rescue car, and I was really cold. I was getting so cold. So I said, do you mind if I get in and just put on all my layers? So got in the car, took everything off to put on the extra layers, cracked on again. And that was when I just needed to sleep. So I'd been kind of getting by in the day by power naps, and they were getting, literally, I'd just lie down for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and you'd get a big chunk of time. It wouldn't take my bag off. I'd literally just lie down, close my eyes, and like energy. But I knew it was too cold. And like I was still entirely rational. I was like, you cannot stop. This is too cold. You will get hypothermic. So I kept going. But then it was the most disorientating, scary thing I've ever had. I basically kept falling asleep, and I would wake up off the course, back up the way that I'd come, like on some side alley or something. Luckily, it was on kind of a track, so you're not on a cliff or anything. And it was like one of those nightmares. It is a nightmare that I've had before races, where you're trying to go somewhere, but you can only move backwards. And I remember like really trying to work out, this must be a nightmare about the spine race. No, I'm sure I've started the spine race. And then looking at my Garmin, I was like, bloody hell, there's red lines off the thing. I am actually sleepwalking. But the other weird thing in that was that it was like I knew, because I'd done that leg, but it was like my brain had blocked out everything apart from this, where we were. And I knew exactly every little twist and turn. I knew exactly where I was going, but I just couldn't get there. It was so terrifying. And yeah, anyway, eventually I got to the little village. It's this tiny little village. And there was someone there with a head torch. And I was like, are you real? Are you really real? And I went to the checkpoint. They got me to the checkpoint. You only allowed 30 minutes in the checkpoint. And it was so scary. I was so disorientated. I was like, I just need to sleep. I just need to sleep. And luckily the medics there, I remember like falling asleep, and they were pricking my finger and listening to my chest. So I was like dozing. And then I remember like, Lucy, you've got 2 minutes. You need to be out of here. And I was like, no, I just need to sleep. But because if you'd stayed, then you're disqualified. So they literally kind of bundled me up, put this bowl of food in my hands, so walked me down to the church. So the church is about a K away, and they just open up this church, no heating or anything, but athletes just put their mats out on the floor and sleep between the pews. It's utterly surreal. So I got to the church, got my stuff out. And I remember thinking, are you not going to get my stuff out for me? That's very mean. You're not even helping me. And lay down, and I think I messaged Bex and Mum, so I was still like conscious enough to send messages, because I didn't set an alarm. In my head, I think I was like, race over. I was like, I just need to let them know that I'm okay. Who knows what, And then I woke up, it was 2.5 hours I was asleep. Woke up like shaking with cold, again, I was like, I just, it wasn't really in my head that I'd be able to continue. But it was like weird because I was kind of alert. I was like, well, I'm not going to warm up lying here, so I may as well get dressed. And they had a kettle, so I made some hot drinks and I had some drinks. And then I remember them saying, you've got to come back to the checkpoint. So I went back to the checkpoint. And again, I just kind of assumed that they wouldn't let me finish. But no, they were like, crack on. Have you got some water in your bottles? Off you go. And I was like, I would have always thought that I would have had to have been dragged off that course. But had they said you can't finish, I think I would have succumbed. It was so disorientating. So then after that, I had 26 miles and it was still dark. So it must have been, I don't know, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I probably felt I don't know, whatever. But I was like, okay, I just need to wait for the sun to come up. Because as soon as the sun comes up, then I can nap. So I was like, I just need to get to the top, because the top was like, my chest was really bad, but it was a bit better with inhaler. So I was like, I can do the climb to the top of the mountain really slowly, and then the sun will come up and I'll be able to nap. And the sun came up, and then it was kind of okay because I could just nap until the bit. So they on that like 26 mile, there were 2 huts, like they're literally just huts with with people there, and they can make you a drink and things. And that's when I got there, and the team there, they were probably camping there for like 5 days or something. They were like, can you take a photo? And I just burst into tears, like floods of tears on them. I don't know why. And they were like, why don't you stay here? I was like, no, I'll keep going. I'll keep going. But they gave me some water for my hot meal, and I put that down my top, and it spilt everywhere to keep me warm. And then I sat down, ate it, and then had a nap. But the bit where I was off course, I still don't know what happened, really. So I do know my Garmin had been playing up. So all the way through the race, it would say I'm on course, and I wasn't. And I remember following the line of my Garmin. I was on a path, and then I was like, I need to sleep. And this is just what happened. I need to sleep. This is a good place to sleep. Sun, like you can stare into the sun. Lay down, fell asleep, woke up. I looked back actually on Strava. It was 32 minutes that sleep. So it was a proper sleep. Woke up, was like, right, need to go. And my Garmin was saying go left. And I knew there was no bit off path. Like I knew that because I'd done that. I knew it was all very easy, but I just decided to follow my Garmin, which is like such a stupid, and why would I do? I still don't understand why I did that. It's like, I'm just going to follow the line instead of knowing what I know, that the line must be wrong. So that was what happened then. So I'd had a 32-minute sleep and then just wandered across some open moorland.
How long before you crossed the finish line was it at that point? How many miles had you left to go, and how long did it take you to get to the finish line?
I don't know. Nikki and Bex will probably know.
It was probably another 4 hours, I'd say 4 or 5 hours, something like that.
That sleep did sort me out, because then my pace was pretty much bang to where everyone else was. Like that sleep sorted me out.
That last day made the story what it was.
It was a stressful day, that was.
Yeah, going back to how you said, how did you tell the story? Goss just told it really well for me. She went off really hard. Everyone was like, what is this she's doing? Like, because obviously the day went and it was nighttime, and then everyone's like, oh, like what happens now? And I was like, well, she just decides. And that's when people were like, oh, right, so she's not going to sleep. And I was like, well, I don't know where she's going to sleep. So I was kind of that's how I told the story, because I was like, oh, there's a bed. Oh, I think this must mean she's asleep. So like it comes up as a bed on the app, which I didn't know was going to be a thing. And then it was a thing. So yeah, and then I was like, oh, she must be asleep. But then it would start moving again. I was like, oh, no, she's not asleep. She's on the move. And she just told she told the story perfectly. Bex gave me the pictures, or I don't know, told me where these places were. And then I just posted it. And then the last day just made it, well, it was, I think you raised an extra day because you just kept sleepwalking. It's when I woke up that morning, I woke up to a message from Goss's mum going, oh, she's been sleepwalking through the night. She'll probably tell you about it. And I hadn't had a message from Goss, and I was like, what? I actually have no context of what's going on now. Like, what do you mean she's been sleepwalking through the night?
And so was your mum there as well, Lucy?
No, Mum was there at the finish, and was she there at the start? No, she took us down the day before. I saw them just like the night before I finished, just before, like a bit when I was coming to the last checkpoint, because they were staying somewhere near there. And then, then they were there at the finish. So poor mum. I mean, Bex said that mum was in tears when I was off in a ditch doing God knows what.
I think you put your mum through some stuff, but that was like next level. Yeah.
I know that my mum doesn't like when I'm out on the bike, and she's always relieved when I'm home, either in a race or when we're out training. I'd say your mother would have preferred you were out on the bike on an Ironman race than being in the Pennine Way for the few days.
Also, because mum, like mum, but I think Bex, you'd probably told mum about my chest, and then mum could hear the chest like when she'd seen me that time. And I remember saying to her, going that checkpoint, I was like, I need to get an inhaler. And I went, I just, so I guess, and also you are going so slowly, like you are effectively going for a long walk for a lot of the time. Yeah, so poor mum and dad, I think they must.
And your mum not being very worried. Like I had a text from her and it reads, Lucy appears to have stopped for ages about 18 miles out. Presumably someone else will pick her up if she's collapsed. Walking on and off. And I was like, oh my, that's all the information I had. And I was like, just psycho staring at this dot on this tracker, but so was everyone else. And then when she started moving, I'd have like, my phone would explode. I'd always have to have it on charge because it would just explode with people messaging going, she's on the move. What do you think this means? I was like, I don't know.
Bex, what was it like actually being out there? You got to experience some of the weather, some of the conditions. What was it like for you being on the road, I suppose, kind of trying to get to the checkpoints ahead of her, trying to get to points where you could actually get the content? I mean, did you see Lucy deteriorate along the way? You must have seen a big change in her from that start line right through, especially, I suppose, to the last day, which was probably the biggest struggle, Lucy, based on what you've just told us.
Well, I feel rather shortchanged, to be honest, because the last time I saw Goss was at Bellingham checkpoint, which is just the last checkpoint before she then effectively had the marathon to go. And I thought once she'd got there, and we kind of discussed previously, it's quite remote, it's quite isolated, and it's almost like we viewed it as a home stretch. And I was like, oh, she'll be fine, I'll see her tomorrow. And so I didn't get to see her in that bad of a state. But yeah, I mean, the thing that I was amazed by is that, I followed the 4 days. Every time I saw that, I think it took you to the third day where you weren't running. So every time I saw her, she was running, and I was like, 24 hours in, you kind of like, she's still running, and 48 hours in, she's still running, and you're just like, is she ever going to just walk? Like, what's going on?
There was a lot of walking.
Well, she was called the Duracell Bunny while she raced Ironman for how many years? So we know she has good form in terms of being able to keep going.
You would see snapshots. So you'd see like a really short snapshot. like you wouldn't then see the hours and hours and hours in between.
Yeah, absolutely. The bit which, like, just kind of being in the position that I was, being able to follow the scenery and the weather, like they got a mix of everything. They got caught in, or Goss got caught in a snowstorm at probably the worst time that could have been, but also that was like bookended with glorious sunshine, and like some of the memories that I made with my dad over those 5 days. I just unreal. Like, I don't think I've ever spent. I was thinking about it. I don't think I've ever spent 5 straight days just me and my dad, in years. So that was a huge highlight. But Hadrian's Wall, I think it was on the 4th day. It's just incredible, like going to Sycamore Gap and all the rest of it, and watching Goss kind of traverse that whole section was unreal. So yeah, it was a great trip for me.
Would it make you want to do it, Bex?
No.
I see Nikki going, no.
No, absolutely not. I think like it's like utterly, like Goss says, it's utterly bonkers. And I think having watched it, I think the further removed you are from it. So now I sit a month removed and I go, oh, it's amazing. You forget all the bad bits or the bits that are tough. And I was just spectating it. But to physically keep moving for that length of time in those conditions, like I remember being, just walking out to a point to watch people come past, and you take your gloves off for a minute and your hands are frozen and you'd have to work 10 minutes to get them warm again. And I was like, I've just come from the warmth of a van, and to be out in that all the time, I was just like, it's bonkers, like absolutely bonkers.
It was like -15 when I was trying to get some context for people of, how cold it was. Because, like if we get cold outside, we just jump back into the car or whatever. But yeah, they were out through the night, like literally whilst we'd been asleep, they were 7 hours out in -15 conditions with snow and, and it's so exposed.
But it's funny looking like now, because however many weeks we are, so it was like your bottles freeze and all your food was frozen. But I think the thing that stuck with me is just how time went and how there was no day, there was no night, there was no, like I didn't listen to a single podcast. I had classical music on, I think, for a few hours. I'd got this amazing playlist that everyone had made for me, who donated, and I just didn't want music. And it's like your brain shuts down and all you're thinking about is it's like a meditative state, I think, for 4 days, and you're so tired, so you get all the sleep deprivation things. But that so I had company for 30 hours. I was with people, and then I was on my own for the rest of the race. And Beck says she's sporting, but I literally see her kind of go past her, and that would be it for another like 10 hours or something. The checkpoints were like complete contrast. They were so busy and there was so much noise. But I loved that just, no sense of time, which I don't think I've ever had before.
And considering your job as a consultant cancer doctor, having that opportunity to just get away from real life probably did allow you to embrace everything that the spine race gave you because it was so far removed from your daily life.
I think, yeah, I was just like, I was really worried about getting bored, and I downloaded hundreds of podcasts and music, and I thought I'd phone people, but actually I think you're literally just trying to stay alive and trying to keep moving. So things like putting music on, it means you have to take your gloves off, to put your headphones in, to do your phone, and then like Beck says, it's then 10 minutes before your fingers have warmed up. It's all you can do to kind of get your food out to eat it. So it was like this primeval, what the word, I don't know, you just like literally back to basics. It's just keep moving and stay awake. And even the trail naps, I literally, that's not normal. You just literally, right, I need to sleep now, lie down, close your eyes, off you go again. Like that's not normal, but it just felt normal.
And Lucy, with regards to the cold, how did you actually manage in the cold? If you had to go to the bathroom or you did want to actually have a drink, but your drinks are frozen and you're 40 miles between the next checkpoint, like how can you fuel your body to keep moving? I know you keep telling me I was moving slow and I was this, that and the other, but you're still moving in a sleep deprived state and climbing. Was there like 10,000 meters worth of climbing as well over the course of the race?
Yeah, I mean, I think I didn't look after myself as well as I could have done, actually, with hindsight. Like I definitely underfueled, which I'm normally really good. Like all the point to points we did, I was so good. But I think it was really cold out on the trail, so it's really hard to eat. Then the checkpoints, it's random time that you get there, and they were so busy that you keep, the volunteers are so lovely, but the checkpoints were so busy, it felt quite effort to get enough food. So I definitely underfueled. I probably would, if I was to ever do it again, I probably would set an alarm to eat every hour, because I swear 4 hours would go and you'd be like, you would have no idea. So yeah, I probably didn't look after myself as well as I could. Peeing's easy. I mean, you just pull your, there's no one around. Literally, there's no one around. So pull your trousers down and off you go.
As one with nature.
At one with nature. I love a picturesque pee stop at the best of times.
And Lucy, what was the strangest thing that happened in the course of the whole race? The strangest experience that you had, other than you shouting at yourself to wake up?
Yeah, the sleepwalking was weird. I was in a blizzard, and that was quite scary. But I also had the kind of insight to know that I was relishing it. So I was lost in a blizzard. But one weird story actually was on sunrise just before Hadrian's Wall. And I decided that I'd have a 10-minute nap on the path, and just the sun was coming out. I was like, just have a 10-minute lie down. I've been up all night on my own. And then I woke up and I saw a dog walker, what I thought was a dog walker. And he came up and he started, "Oh, Lucy." And he was a triathlon fan. And I said, "I don't suppose you've got any water that I can defrost my bottles with?" And he said, No, I've got more than that. I've got a fire, I've got coffee. And I was like, who is this guy? What am I dreaming this? But there was a pop-up aid station in a little cafe that I didn't know existed. And he'd just come out to find me to take me there. So that was super cool. And there were lots of people out there like giving out kind of snacks, and because you're not allowed to have. So just to be clear, Bex did not support me as in give me anything or, any support. They're very clear. You're not allowed to have that. But there are, unless you give it to the whole race. And there are a huge amount of people who do give stuff out to the whole race. So they just stand there all day giving out. There's one couple that had satsumas and cheddar cheese and crisps. I was like, this is exactly what I want. Like, exactly what I want.
Proper fueling, a bag of crisps on the side of the Pennine Way.
But I kind of like the early sleep deprivation. I actually really enjoyed, and I really want to go through that again, because it was that like night 2 when I was hallucinating. It was really cool. Everything's amplified, and that not being quite sure what's real and what's not real. It is quite a cool state. I actually did really enjoy that. Maybe that's just with hindsight.
Bex, how did you get on with the sleep deprivation? Did you actually sleep whilst Lucy was on the course?
Yeah, the first couple of nights, I basically just wanted to like experience as much as I could. So I was getting up, and actually Goss was traveling at a far quicker rate than what we'd anticipated. And so I think it was the first night I had anticipated she'd come past where we were sleeping like early morning. So I thought, great, I'll have a good night's sleep, wake up, and Goss will be coming past as I'm having a cup of tea. Anyway, she was flying at such a rate of knots that she actually came past at 3 a.m. And so my dad was on the tracker. He was like, you sleep, I'll be on the tracker and I'll let you know when she's kind of close. And so, yeah, I basically got up and watched her go past, but it was incredible. I actually really loved the night shifts because, yeah, you could literally, I think I covered half marathon in the first night. I was like, I'm up, I may as well crack on and see the sights kind of thing. And people are so like chatty and so like just receptive of support. They're like, oh, thanks so much for coming out. I was like, it's the least I can do. Like, you're doing what you're doing. So yeah, the first couple of days I didn't get much sleep, but then as Goss was slowing down a bit, that righted itself, and I got a few more hours in the bank each night.
And Nikki, how did you stay on top of all of the explosion of messages and WhatsApps and stuff coming in? Because you've your own training schedule for this year, obviously, big plans, which you might share with us as well, so that our listeners know where they can follow you for the 2024 season when it kicks off. But like, how did you get the balance of dot watching yourself, trying to actually learn as well whilst Goss was en route, but then also like, I don't think I'd have been able to sleep. I actually wouldn't have been able to sleep at all.
Yeah. So firstly, it was addictive from like the word go. Like Goss didn't ask me like any specifics. I just kind of had free reign, which was great. But it was addictive. Like I shared the first story that they're off, and then I was just addicted to the dot. But not just me, the amount of people addicted to dot watching was unbelievable. And it was just, yeah, so like my day usually was I wake up a few times through the night, check my phone, and often that's when Goss gave me like a night update, and they were the best. So I couldn't sleep past 6. And for anyone who knows me, like, I am not a morning person. Like, if I can naturally wake up, I like an 8 a.m. So I was up every day, no later than 6. And often we swim first. So I'd like get an update going then. And then I'd go off, and because I was swimming quite a lot because of my injury, like it was quite annoying because like I was away from my phone, and I just kind of wanted to keep getting out of the pool and just checking my phone. And so I'd do like another, day update. Then I go back and train, and it was like update, train, sleep, try and sleep. No. And then like the last day, I can't remember, I didn't sleep on the Wednesday night very well, and we had an early morning swim. Well, early, but 7:30. And I went to have a nap, and that's when Goss went AWOL. There's no way I can nap now. And literally it was so addictive that I just wanted to keep tracking it. Like, and just so many people did. And it was just, yeah, I had a bit of post-race blues.
The come down is real. It absolutely is.
The come down for me was epic. Like, let alone Goss and her family.
Nikki, tell us, what are your plans for racing? How are you kicking off your season for 2024, and where should we expect to see you on a start line?
I'm just going to say it's going to be a slow and steady start to the season for me. I've had probably the worst injury I've probably had in my career. So I tore my plantar and had like severe plantar fasciitis. I don't want to jinx it, but I'm probably going to. I've had 2 weeks of absolutely nothing now. It's been great, but we don't want to get carried away. So I'm returning so slow because I don't want to jeopardize anything for the Nice World Champs in September and New Zealand World 70.3 Champs in December. So they're like my big goals. So we're just going with the slow and steady at the moment. So yeah, I can't wait to watch all the races start. I mean, they've already started, but for me, it's going to be pretty late start to the season. Like if I can do a race in June or July, that's good going. But all eyes on both the World Champs 70.3 and the full distance in Nice for me.
And of course, the wedding.
Oh, and the Gay Games wedding is commencing just 6 days after the World Champs.
And I'm their vicar. I want
to MC the wedding.
So literally, I'm actually really glad we, in hindsight, definitely asked Goss before this. We wanted to, so there's quite a lot. The wedding's not going to be traditional in any sense. And then when we were talking through with the guy who's like helping us arrange the wedding, we were talking through the ceremony and it all was a bit too strict with all the rules with the registrars. And I was like, no, I can't have rules on my wedding day. So we decided that we're going to get registered and just do that, get that out of the way on the Friday, which will be 5 days after Nice. and then we want our own style, and we've always wanted someone very close to us and special to, I say, give us away, but Beck says, no, that's not what Goss is doing. So now we just call Goss the vicar because it's a much easier way.
So now she's marrying you.
Yeah, she's marrying
like a throuple.
Throuple.
What's that?
What's? It's in we're all marrying together.
Oh yeah, why not? And Titch will be the first down the aisle. So it's going to be a very non-traditional sense. And so we asked Goss to be the vicar. Just went off on the spine. It's just like a day before you went. And I was like, by the way.
Well, that was good to keep her mind off it, because now she has loads of stories to tell of ye, and ye have even more stories to tell of her. So going to be a huge part of the wedding day stories anyway. Goss, coming back to you, you mentioned at the start of the show the importance of Move Against Cancer and 5k your way, and you've had an incredible response to the fundraising. From last recount, I think it was around £31,000 sterling, including the gift aid that has come through. It's absolutely phenomenal. Will you tell our listeners what it will mean to the charity when that money actually physically comes through to them, and what impact it will have to the programmes that the charity are delivering to the cancer patients?
Oh, thank you. And thanks for your generous donation as well, Jo. Yeah, Move Against Cancer is a small charity. So that is probably over 20% of our annual income, which is just, I'm just blown away. I literally can't believe how many people donated and the generosity of people. So we have three main arms of work. So one is 5k Your Way initiative, which is the initiative I co-founded in 2018. And it's really simple. It's an active support group with difference. And we meet at park runs on the last Saturday of every month. Each group's led by volunteer ambassadors who've all been affected by cancer. And people walk, jog, run, cheer or volunteer as much or as little as they want to, and then just go and have a chat and a coffee. So it's about kind of using the physical benefits of exercise with the psychological benefits of being around people that get it. It's really simple, but it's so empowering and so powerful. We've now got, I think, 95 groups across the UK and Ireland, which is bonkers. And then we've got a life-changing online, again, it's so simple, but simple works. So an online 8-week rehab program for young people aged 13 to 30 who've either finished their cancer treatment or have got a gap in their cancer treatment. And they get 8 online sessions with a cancer rehab instructor. So they're kind of personal trainers who specialise in kind of cancer rehabilitation. And it's about supporting the young people to get confidence back in their body, do things that they can do in their home environment. And so, you go through cancer treatment, particularly as a young person, so much of your body changes physically, but also psychologically. And when you finish your treatment, that's when the hospital stops. That's when there is this massive gap. So it's really powerful, really life-changing. And the testimonials we get from people who've been through it is incredible. And then the other kind of bigger picture is a kind of work in progress, is resources to inspire and support and empower people to be active. So there's huge amounts of evidence that for anyone who does have a cancer diagnosis or has had a cancer diagnosis, one of the biggest things that they can do to make themselves feel better, but probably also improve their outcome is move. And that's the mission of Move Against Cancer. So we're a tiny charity and it's a massive sum of money for us. And yeah, I'm literally blown away. And thank you so much to every single person that's donated.
And Lucy, if somebody wants to donate or to find out more about the charity, where do they go to?
So yeah, the Just Giving page is still open. I've still got donations coming in, which is like, I'm not going to close it until they stop. And yeah, Move Against Cancer all over social media.
Brilliant. So before we finish up, I want to ask you, has it taken long to recover physically from the race?
Less than I thought, actually. I thought I would be more kind of systemically wiped out, but I've recovered pretty well physically, I think.
And if you look back now to say 3 months out from the race or even 2 months out from the race, and you were to give yourself a bit of advice about the event, what would it be?
Sleep on the trail, not in the checkpoints.
Save the time. And then I suppose Bex and Nikki, are there any funny stories that have come to mind whilst we've been talking that you want to share with Lucy that she mightn't have realised, or have we heard about a lot of them already?
I think we've covered a lot of them. I think that first stage, sleep hallucinating, I got a fond memory. It would have been night 2, I think, of Goss. And I'd gone out onto the trail to watch her go past. And of course, at night, all you can see is a head torch. And so, you know, if you're an athlete running, having a head torch look at you is probably quite a startling thing. And Goss was coming towards me and I never knew whether she had headphones in and I didn't want to startle her or whatever. And so all I could hear is, "Who's there?" And I was like, "It's Bex." She was like, "It's Bex. Bex, is that really you? I'm hallucinating. Is it really you?" And I had to like go up to her and like physically touch her. But yeah, like I think you were hallucinating of tents and people, which are the two things you were craving at that point. And so yeah, that was quite comical. And I thought that, God, this is the beginning of the challenge that she's taking on. Like this is what she's wanted. But yeah, it was quite some of the states people get themselves in. It's just unreal. And I think, yeah, just the stories of people, you know, Goss was at the pointy end, but the people that were finishing, you know, day 7, I just think, wow, credit to them. You know, it's an epic challenge that takes so much preparation and support to do. It's unreal.
Yeah, I'd say we've covered most of the funny stories. I think it's just like more the rawness of it all. Like, so when I was like, so many people were sending in photos and videos of Goss who were like volunteers or something in the race. And yeah, just like the rawness of it. Like Goss had, I think it was the first mini checkpoint. And to be honest, I didn't really understand what the checkpoints were or what a mini checkpoint was. So when you get a photo of what a mini checkpoint looks like, it's like a tent on the course somewhere. And she was just sat in this deck chair, closing her eyes for 10 minutes with a burger sat on her lap. And just like the amount of people who find that fascinating. And like I had a later on photo of Goss, because like each day she would swell up more and more and more. And then like the last photo, I was like, oh my, that doesn't even look like Goss anymore. And like there was one photo, it must have been the second from last day or something. And she was just like trudging through this street with a big burger in one hand and something else in another. And somebody sent, official photographer sent, "Oh, like this is Goss on the course." And it was just so raw. Like it just really just
a good sausage sandwich, I think.
Yeah.
But Nikki also found out about Andrew on day 1, day 2. So I like Nikki and Bex. I don't know how they held themselves together, to be honest, doing all of this, because Nikki and Bex loved Andrew as well, and to get a message out the blue and then kind of deal with everything publicly, yet trying to work out together what the hell they did with that information, other than, you know, saying it's not true at first, like that. Yeah, I think that's true friendship. And I still don't know how they managed to hold it together, because that must have been tough. And so when you were talking about Nikki's training, I think the reality is Nikki didn't really do much training, because she had all the good stuff, but she also had this knowledge that Andrew, and you know, that was the start of it, but Andrew had been dating someone else, and what the hell do you do with that? So working, I think that was probably more stressful than everything else.
It was definitely sleepless week. Let's put it that way. All 8 days, and yeah, it was one of the toughest weeks, I think, definitely. Still can't. It still seems like really surreal now just thinking about it all.
I think, Lucy, what's been fabulous is that you haven't let it tarnish your experience or your performance or your phenomenal epicness at the race. And whilst your heart is probably broken and your head is wrecked from the whole thing, you've been so open with everybody about what happened. And I think as well that endeared you with everybody in terms of the support that you got as well, because I know donations kept coming in after the race. And when the news broke about it, I think it just showed even more the true strength of character that you are and the sheer resilience that you have, that you were able to come out so publicly about what Andrew had done. And this race was something that both of you had started together. What he did will never tarnish what you've achieved. Absolutely amazing. And what you've done together as a group of 3 very, very close friends is bonded for life. Whatever Andrew does in the future is up to him, but it's never going to affect your relationship with Nikki and Bex and the friendship that you have. And it's never going to take away from what you did, which is just superhuman. And so much respect for you, Lucy. I've always had respect for you from the very first time that I met you. And when we used to play, I'm so excited on the start line of the Ironman races, and used to see the wonderful smile from Lucy Gossage. Like, you are an incredible human, and it's been a pleasure and a privilege to have you on the podcast again, along with Nikki and Bex. And I'm so grateful to the 2 girls for organising this. And this all came on the back of our little bit of a pool time in Lanzarote and our lovely coffees and cakes from Dos Mills on the Puerto del Carmen promenade chats and crack that we have. But yeah, like, I don't think you should ever underestimate, Lucy, the power of what you've done. What you've achieved in your lifetime, 90% of the world would be lucky to achieve a quarter of it. So congratulations, and thank you so much for being with us and sharing your story and your journey and everything with us. And then I've got to ask you, what's next?
Oh, I was putting my hand up to ask that as well. Everyone keeps asking me, how's Goss? How's she doing? What's she doing next? Like, the amount of people asking me that question.
I don't know. I'm taking myself, I'm seeing it as I'm going off the lakes next weekend on my own. I'm going to do a 3-day point to point, because that's what me and Andrew did together. And I'm like ripping off the band-aids, because I think I haven't wanted to do that. I don't know what I'll do, but I will do some more ultras, but I'm a bit worried I'll get sucked into being competitive. But I want to find something that feels as big as the spine in 3 years' time, some unknown something. I don't know, like that Arctic spine is just like, so I can't cross-country ski, so it's like starting from scratch, but something so big. I feel like that's what the spine gave me, and I'd like that in kind of 3 to 5 years.
And you were a very good cyclist as well. So the likes of race across America, maybe on your bike, or
what? No,
Sahara Desert.
Oh, can you imagine being on a bike when you were in the state that I was? Like, I actually think that would make me not do something like that. Yeah, I don't know this year, but I'll definitely do some crazy stuff, and I'm fairly certain Bex will end up doing some crazy stuff as well.
I think she will too. And my final question, Lucy, is what was it like, if you can remember, crossing the finish line and tapping the wall?
I was just in floods of tears. I just couldn't. It was like the rawest. You've seen me cry at Ironman. I'm a crier actually, but I was just floods and floods and floods and floods of tears. I think just relief that I was safe. I think that was it. As much something as like, thank God I'm safe.
I think as well, Joe, just that finish line, the rawness of it again, like finish lines. I mean, you are the finish line of Ironman, and calling people across. There is nothing like that here. It's like there's a head torch coming in the distance. There's a few people out, and Goss crosses the line after doing what she's done. There's a bit of a post-race interview, and then it's like, right, your kit's over here, on you go. Like,
no, actually, they took me into a room. I got there to tell me about Hannah's bonus.
Yeah.
I thought they'd taken me off to disqualify me.
Oh, no.
What's going on? Taking me from my mummy. I just want to be with my mummy.
But yeah, within 15 minutes of being crossed the finish line, she sat at the pub with us having a drink, and you're just like, you don't need a shower or some food or a lie down or just something. And it's literally, they wave you on your way and you're like, off you go.
Nikki, are you going to be hiring yourself out as a social media content deliverer for the next year for another race?
I can say
here now.
I will never do the spine. But I will happily support Goss and do the spine.
Bex is so understated because Bex said to me, Nikki's doing a good job of storytelling. I think those are your exact words. Like, I literally had, she's like, you've got a few people following you. Nikki just like, what a team they were. But when you think about what was actually going on behind the scenes, it makes it even more kind of impressive. But Nikki has got a massive talent for telling a story and drawing people in.
So I just was blabbering anything because I literally was so clueless. I was like, I'll just tell some random story.
You captured our imagination, that's for sure. Nikki Bartlett, Bex Milnes and Lucy Gossage, thank you so much for joining us on the Try Talking Sport podcast. Congratulations once again, Lucy. And I look forward to seeing your next set of adventures. Not sure to be on an Ironman finish line, maybe race across America, maybe in the desert, maybe Badwater. Look, there's some choices for you.
All the age groupers listening like, I want Goss back at the race. They're waiting for your out of retirement comeback, Goss.
Will we see her in Nice? She might make an appearance in Nice to support you, Nikki. No pressure there.
Try and qualify for Nice and get racing Nice.
You said it here. Thank you so much, girls. Really appreciate it. And I know that all the listeners will appreciate it as well. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. You can get in touch with any feedback or guest suggestions by emailing me on trytalkingsport@gmail.com. If you would like to hear more great episodes of the podcast, be sure to check them out on our website or wherever you get your shows. You can follow all of our activities and podcasts on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn and Instagram. And as always, if you have any feedback or guest suggestions, please pop me an email. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, thanks for listening, stay safe, keep smiling, and remember, as always, to look for fun and adventure in every day.